Happy Monday, everybody. It's time for another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. Mike, we have a lot of questions to get into, so let's jump right in. Our first question is from someone and our cranky friend. He's our sometimes cranky friend in Mousetown who wants to know, what is with all the players who missed the scrimmage with injuries? All this talk about how physical camp has been and how good it will be for the team won't matter if we've got a bunch of starters in street clothes when the season begins.
I actually applaud what they're doing. This is one of the most, not just under Pittman, this is one of the most physical fall camps I've ever seen. And usually coaches stay away from that because you can. And we're seeing around the country, their injuries are starting to mount with some other teams. And I just think there's an attitude on this staff based on last year. We've got to make something happen. And we've got to develop some depth. And so you've got not only to get your starters competing in physical situations, but you've even got to have your backups doing that. Now, I was surprised, I think it was last week, when Landon Jackson said in an interview that they were actually doing some tackling the first day. You remember that?
Yeah.
So they weren't even in any pads. And he said we've done some of that live tackling in every practice since. And yes, you can't do that. You can't be that physical without injuries starting to mount up. But it's not what it seems, because Sam Pittman said well over half of those guys would have played if it had been a real game. He said they didn't have to because it wasn't a real game. And if you think about it, I think what he's doing is smart, because he's holding out a lot of times guys that they can't afford to lose, who they know can play, to develop guys behind them. Mm-hmm. So in that scrimmage, for instance, you saw two of the three wide receivers out. Yeah. You know, Isaiah Satenia was the only one of the starters that was in that scrimmage. He had a great scrimmage, by the way.
Yeah.
But then you saw somebody like Monte Harrison, who I remember when it popped up early last summer that he was going to be at Arkansas. Well, surely this guy's not going to play. He's 28 years old, hasn't played football in like 7 or 8 years. It's going to take him a year. No, Sam Pittman said he will help us.
Yeah.
And he looked good in that scrimmage.
He caught a touchdown pass in the scrimmage, right? Yeah.
Yes. And he said he's really good at yards after the catch. That's where he really stands out. So you saw it happen there. Then we talk about the offensive line where they had some backups. Now, you got to go to Eric Mateos' interview because this was interesting. I have been saying that the one concern I had was especially depth in the O-line. I felt like they brought in some transfers, but beyond that, they couldn't afford injuries. He's saying the opposite of that. He's saying, I'm going to play 9 guys this year. Not just say, I've got 9 guys I can count on. I'm going to play them. He's not going to just stick his starters out there and they play the whole game. He's going to rotate 8 or 9 guys. And so he's developing those guys right now. So a guy like Marion Harris, who's in his 3rd year, and we've heard a lot about him even when he was a freshman, but then he never played much. Now this is his year to play, even though he's not a starter, because they're going to play more guys. To me, I think this is a different philosophy that Mateos has. Maybe Pittman was okay last year with sticking with the starters mostly. And so you'd have to be in that room to know if there's discussions back and forth. But there's just a theme in this camp of this has to be real. And we're going to have to take some chances. Now, here's the thing. Texas has already lost its top running back, one of the preseason top running backs in the country. A&M's lost its top running back. I mean, so there's 2 right there, right off the bat. There's another SEC school, I don't know, was it Florida? Somebody lost a really good defensive player.
Not Florida.
I don't know who it was, but I remember seeing it. So
they have a player who's injured right now, but he's expected to return.
Well, no, there's 3 SEC teams that have lost an outstanding player for the season in these preseason practices or scrimmages. So Arkansas has been lucky because the key on that scrimmage was nobody in that scrimmage got hurt. The people that were out were people that had happened before. Now, here's one thing that I'm curious about, because there are about 5 of these with concussions, including Luke Haas.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've watched, but the NFL has changed its policy on those things you put on your helmet that cushion.
Yeah, I've seen
Now,
that.
they don't look dumb like the ones we've seen where they're orange or weird and they look like the outside of a grenade with
it looks
knobs.
like a grenade. That's what it looks like to me.
These NFL helmets, sort of, in a photo, you can't really tell it's not a helmet, but it's a covering with material similar to what you see in roll bars in cars when they're racing. So if your helmet goes back and hits that bar, it's not, that helmet is rigid. A helmet is rigid, a football helmet is. And I really believe the day is going to come when they don't make them rigid, that the whole helmet is made out of that material that they're slipping over right now, because what you do to lessen the chances of a concussion is it's the impact over a distance. Mm-hmm. So if you got a rigid barrier here, the outside of a helmet, and it gets hit and slams up against the side of your head, if there's just a little padding there, it doesn't slow that down enough and your head goes like this and it shakes your brain around, and that's when you get a concussion. But the more padding you got there, the more it cushions that. Right. And so by the time it reaches the side of your head, you're not going, and your brain's not shaking all over the place. I think we're headed toward that. I talked about it on this show a few years ago. That they need to do something with the helmets. I don't care if it makes it look weird. I think the NFL has proven that they can make these things look normal.
Yeah, it costs money though.
Everybody wants these glossy, hard plastic helmets that look good, but they're dangerous. They're idiotic.
But it costs money to do that, to make it look cool and to have the technology there to keep players safe. It costs money. And I think what you're seeing now is where you have to have somebody come down and go, hey, you have to make these kinds of helmets so that way your players are
if they're going to
safe.
do all this stuff about the players are getting gypped on NIL money, why don't the courts come through and say, hey, wait a minute, you got to make these helmets better?
Correct, yeah.
Because we know that is a huge long-term issue. Athletes that played in the 60s, a lot of these ex-Razorbacks ended up with Alzheimer's because of these concussions they had as players. Yeah. So I've said before, I had about 4 of them when I was in high school, and I've worried about that, you know. I don't think it affects everybody, but long-term effects are bad. So anyway, the point is they've had these physical scrimmages and have gotten away. Arkansas has been lucky so far. Now they got another one coming up.
Yeah, this week.
And any one of them, there could be a problem. So you just,
pray,
really,
right?
from now on, even once you get into the season, there's nothing about the season that says you won't have injuries. Every time you have a game, you can have these. So a lot of what happens if you're an Arkansas type team, rather, I've said before, Alabama, Georgia, some of those guys have so much depth, they can afford injuries. But I think what we're seeing here, I think the staff is smart, and I think they've accepted a challenge. We're going to create depth. We're going to develop backup players. Mateo said, I don't want to be in a situation standing on the sidelines, and all of a sudden my starting center goes down, and I look over there in a panic, and I see my backup desperately snapping the ball to the quarterback so they can get an exchange going, a rhythm. I want them to already know that they've done that, you know. Yeah. So I applaud that. I think things are going well.
I also think you can't go into every press conference and preach physicality and say we're going to have physical practices, we're going to be physical right now, and then go out and not do that, right? I think some of these where you're seeing that injury list and holding guys out is because Sam's doing it out of precaution, which I applaud, right? You should hold guys out for precaution if you want to keep them healthy. But also, you can see some of the other injuries there. You're like, okay, this is physical practice. These are physical practices.
And it could have been much worse.
And it could have been much worse, exactly. TL Slayton says, you've been talking up KJ Jackson, the freshman QB, but according to Pittman, Singleton is a solid number 2. Does that surprise you? Actually, he said Malachi is their backup quarterback last week. He announced that and said that after the scrimmage, that Malachi is going to be the backup. So.
Yeah, maybe it surprises me a little bit. I was just really knocked out by what I saw with KJ Jackson in the spring, and I still think the guy's a tremendous talent. But I mean, you give Singleton credit; he stepped up and taken that job and said it's mine. There's a real contrast between he and Green. They're different styles of quarterback, and that's actually good. If he has to come into a game, having somebody that's a different style of quarterback sometimes throws the defense off. He's not an all-out speed guy, but he's more of a quick feet guy that can scoot through a hole. He's shown the ability to roll out on the corners. He's not tall like Green.
But he's got some size on him.
He's about 6'1", 6'2", something like that. But he's not going to stand up in the pocket and see over all those guys. So he's going out to the corner and spotting people and throwing the shorter routes especially. So I'm not surprised because this happens all the time. I'm not some sort of expert that always just knows who's going to this guy is going to be the starter. You know, I'm not the coach anyway. They're the ones that decide that, and they see a lot that I don't see. And I just would give, you know, Malachi Singleton a lot of credit for going, and then that's good. Now, what they're afraid of, what a lot of people are afraid of, is somebody like KJ Jackson will get frustrated and transfer. There's always a chance of that. That's just what happens these days. He hasn't said anything like that, but his battle with Singleton will come if Taylon Green leaves after this year, and there's some indication he may not. So if Green comes back for another year, you might see one of those two guys out of here.
Yeah, you may. I mean, that is kind of the world we live in right now with the transfer portal. He can absolutely leave, and if you're not getting playing time, I mean, who can blame him, right?
Sure.
So, hey, but that's why quarterback battles are so interesting. Top Hog 19 wants to know, what's up with Shamar Easter? He came in very highly rated and now is never mentioned. I see him doing drills, but nothing said about progress. I'd hate to see a kid with that much promise transfer. Look, just another one that we brought up here. He seems a bit light as far as weight also.
The first thing I would say about that may be the deepest room on the team. They are really loaded with time. They've got 5 that they're going to play. In fact, their position coach, Turner, has said what? He said, I have 5 guys that are SEC ready. And you can start with Luke Hasz, who's not just SEC ready. A lot of people think he's an all-SEC candidate, maybe an All-American at some point, a really good player. And then Ty Washington, he redshirted his freshman year, but still caught a touchdown pass in the Liberty Bowl. So they've known he has talent. Played some last year and was really playing well. And remember, Luke Hasz got hurt, so he was playing more, and then he got hurt.
Yeah.
So in a very I think he caught 4 touchdown passes last year and didn't play but about half the season. So they're very high on him. And then Marquise Gums, the transfer tight end from North Texas, last year was an adjustment period for him. But now he's adjusted, had a good spring, had a good camp, and they're really high on him. So he's going to play. And then they've got a size guy, a 260 that's more of a blocker, but he can catch passes. So those 5 right there are ahead of Easter. Now, what does that mean? Well, specifically, Turner was asked, what about Easter? And what he said was, he's fine. We're completely satisfied with his progress. We see flashes of what we know he can do. He just has to be more consistent. I got the impression that what they're really talking, and he is undersized. He does need to add about 15 pounds of weight, which he can do. But I got the impression that what he's basically saying is he needs to learn the offense better. Because with Petrino in particular, you have to, as a receiver, a tight end catching passes, and some of the stuff they're asking the tight ends to do, we've told they might go into the backfield and be blockers, you know, things like that. You have to know that offense, and maybe he doesn't know it as well as the other guys. But there's no indication that he's planning to transfer, but if he does, he does. You can't not play the guys that are ahead of him just because you're afraid you would lose a guy.
Oklahoma says, describe a moment during a past fall camp when you first got a feel that the team might really overperform predictions. What led to your instincts on that one, and were they correct?
I'm going to go back to 2001. If you remember, the 2000 seasons were kind of you'd had those two horrible years under Chad Morris. Pittman comes in, there are a lot of people going, wait a minute, this guy's never been a head coach before. And then on top of all that, you get COVID, you get a 10-game only SEC schedule, you're playing Alabama and Georgia.
So we're talking about 2021, right?
I am, but I'm going back to the year before to explain.
Okay, to 2020, or 2020, right?
Yes, 2020, which was COVID. And then that team basically beat Auburn and got screwed out of that, so they should have had 4 wins instead of 3 wins. And then remember the LSU game when the rules under COVID were if you had an excessive number of people that had to sit out a week at a position, you could opt out of that game and have it transferred later on, postponed.
Yeah.
So they could have postponed that LSU game, and Sam Pittman said, no, we're going to play. That cost them the game because that was a close game, and their D linemen got exhausted because they had all these backups. So that could have very easily been a 5-win team. So there's progress. But the next year, you got to do something there. I had felt like at a minimum they needed 4 or 5 SEC wins, obviously needed to go to a bowl game, and there was a debate. Can they get to a bowl game in year 2, even though they qualified for a bowl game the year before with 3 wins? So we're in preseason camp, and there are 2 things that I remember. I just remember watching KJ and then having everybody talk about the leadership that he was showing and the way he was taking over everything. And then everybody was talking about Grant Morgan and what he did all summer to keep those guys in the summer conditioning program doing what they were doing. It's never been this good. And when I kind of got the impression when you got leaders like that, one on either side of the ball, they're going to be better than we think they are. And then look what they did. You know, it's Sam Pittman's best year. They had that bowl win over Penn State. And I think they can do that again. I have that same feeling about, I don't know that they'll win 8 or 9 games this year, but I have that same feeling. I see things in fall camp that just make you feel like it's not the team that all these people are ragging on every day. He's still got the same head coach. He doesn't know what he's doing. Blah, blah, blah. So
I think it's really hard for us, and we've talked about this on the show before. And when Hog fans ask me, you know, Courtney, how does the team look this year? I give them the same answer as like, well, you know, there's a lot of things that we see that are good in fall camp, but we also only get to see so much of it. And then even if we got to see the full practice, right, I'm sure we would get to see some maybe not so great stuff as well, but we don't really know until this team faces other competition.
But
and
you
so,
can get a feeling, and those feelings
can.
are not usually wrong.
Okay.
Okay. They can be.
We will come back to this, Mike Irwin.
I mean, I certainly had a feeling when Chad Morris was here, like, whoa, this is weird.
Yeah, you didn't like that?
Oh, it was just strange from the minute this guy took over.
The Bionic Pig asked, do you believe the coaches will have a dual threat package for Jaquindon Jackson? After all, he was the #2 overall recruit out of the state of Texas as a high school quarterback.
When he first got here, he was asked about that, and he just kind of blew it off.
He
said,
did,
well, I
he
guess.
did.
I don't know. If they asked me to do it, I would do it. I don't know. Whatever, you know. It didn't seem to be a big deal.
Yeah.
Look, we haven't seen any evidence of that, right? I don't think Petrino has talked about it, right?
No, we have not seen any evidence.
Here's what
of
I'm
it.
saying. It's just too obvious. He's going to do it at some point.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know who it's against. Might be against the Aggies, might be against the Longhorns. All of a sudden, Jaquindon Jackson, you think he's going to sweep right, and he pulls back up and throws deep downfield to Isaiah Satenya, and boom, it's a touchdown.
Yeah, but they're not going to tell people that because that will be something that they hold close to their chest. They want to surprise people about that if that happens. He was asked all the players were asked in that little Hogs Plus thing where they were like, if you didn't play your position, what would you play? And all of them said quarterback. I thought that was hilarious. Or every single one of them were like, we're coming for your job, Talon, you know? Yeah. And I can't remember if Jaquindon Jackson was in that, but I'm going to go back and look now because that was kind of funny. Team Otis wants to know, what do you think about the new iPads coaches and players will use to watch and review individual plays? Also, how would you utilize the iPads as a coach? And I thought this was interesting, Mike, because when this got announced, like what, was it last summer? Or
something like that.
I felt like they should have been using it already.
Well,
like, how are you not using this technology?
Look, this is a much bigger development than the whole deal with putting the microphone, headset on the quarterback and presumably a linebacker. That's what we're told. That probably Sorey will have a headset in his microphone and can talk back and forth with. I don't know if they talk back or is it just one way.
I think it's just one way. Okay. I have to look at that. I believe it's
but
just
anyway,
one way.
That everybody talks about that being a big deal. This is a bigger deal, and it's a no-brainer. Come on, you're sitting there on the sidelines as a coach. You're let's say you're Eric Mateos, and you're watching your offensive line, and you see a play, and then you look at it on replay, and you notice something. Okay. Wait a minute, Fernando Carmona did this and he should have done that, so you make a mental note of it.
Absolutely.
Then when they come off the field, you sit down with them. Now, before they were just describing things. Now you can actually show this to people.
Yeah.
Now, he asked, how would I use it? What would be the use of it? Here's what I would have done, and I don't know that Sam Pittman didn't do this, but the minute I knew this was going to happen, I would have gotten video from last year, gotten my coaches all in a room, and then Sam Pittman, would sit down and pretend to be a player in question. And I would say, okay, we just saw this play where this guy did this and he was supposed to do that. Now I'm that player, you the position coach, how are you going to coach me? Because I want them all to learn how to do this. What I'm saying to you is this is a new skill. This is something entirely new that nobody's done before. Some are going to be better at it than others. I think it's important enough that coaches should go out of their way to make sure that all of their players, all of their staff members know how to coach this way and get the most out of it, because it is a revolutionary development. You will win games based on your ability to adjust due to the fact that you can actually show somebody what they're doing wrong as opposed to just talking to them about it. But again, my experience tells me there are going to be some coaches and some staffs that are better than others, and they're going to win games because of it. Maybe not every game, but there might be 1 or 2 games a year in which the way they adjusted and used this video to coach during the game will help them win a game. And so the way I would use it is I would make sure my staff knew how to use this, knew how to coach off of it, because it's just not automatic.
No. It's a new technology. They're dealing with it. It's kind of crazy to say that iPad technology is new technology, because when I was covering high school football, 2-3 years ago in the Panhandle, they had that technology at the high school level. At some really good high schools, they had this technology.
I know.
It's crazy to me that we're in 2024 and we're talking about this technology. I mean, this technology is not new. It's been around.
There was just always a feeling it was an unfair advantage. It was some would use it and it would be unfair to others. And for years and years and years, college athletics worked this way. This school has the money to do this. This school over here might not do it, so let's don't do it because it's unfair to those.
I just think it's silly. I think that's silly to me.
You can go all the way back to press guides. When press guides first got popular, here's what happened. They originally were just for the media. You'd get a media guide every year at the start of the year, and you'd have all the names on it. It would be the big, thick thing. Yeah. And I always felt like they were pretty useless anyway, because you would get daily updates, things would change. Yeah. And so I very seldom would use, the only time I would use a press guide would be if you wanted to look back and see what happened 30 years ago in a season. They're good for that. But what started happening with these press guides is fans wanted them. And so they started selling them. Well, then a lot of these schools with money started doing color pictures and making them fancy, and then they were generating more revenue from selling this stuff. Yeah. Well, when they had one of these meetings that they used to have with all of the Division I schools, the smaller schools, which outnumbered the bigger schools, said, wait a minute, we don't have the money to spend all this on all this press guide stuff. And the NCAA stepped out and said you can only have one color picture.
What?
Yes, that was a rule.
One color picture?
In your press guide. The rest of it had to be black and white. And you could only have it so big. There could only be so many pages. This was done to make it fair to all of the smaller schools.
Okay.
And if we've evolved in any way, and talking about all these changes, it's evolved toward the athletes for sure with all these new rule changes. But the other way that football especially has evolved is they've just kind of taken the attitude to heck with these smaller schools. If you can't keep up, that's not our problem.
Yeah, I mean, look at NIL. I mean, they're not giving any leeway to these smaller schools. Oh, you have to do this or this or this, because the smaller schools, no, they're just kind of saying, it's the way the world is.
Exactly. So, again, I just think this should have happened all along, but that's why it didn't happen.
No, and that makes sense, but it's just funny to me that like high schoolers were using this technology and they're used to coming off of a play and going over it with their coach away.
I just can't emphasize enough how big I think this is. Yeah. It's a game changer, but it's going to separate some teams from the others because some coaches are going to be too slow in recognizing. They just assume their coaches can coach off these iPads and do a good job, and maybe somebody doesn't.
Yeah, maybe
somebody you got a wide receivers coach that's not good at that. He's freaking out. He's looking at, what do I do here? And the players are going, what's he doing? You know.
I would really hope that Sam Pittman has taken the time to make sure that all of
I would do dress rehearsals.
Absolutely, yes. Make sure you know how to use the technology that's given to you. That seems a no-brainer.
And even get their coordinators. Okay, Bob Petrino, you sit down here. I'm your quarterback.
How are you going to use this during the game?
This play just happened, and to get a play where KJ did something dumb and screwed up, and say, now you tell me what I need to do to correct that. I'm KJ Jefferson from last year.
From last year, or Taylon Green from this year. I think that's a really good idea, Mike. I'd love to know if Sam did that with the players. I don't think, or with his coaches. I don't know if he did. We don't know. He very well could have done that, but that seems like a no-brainer to me. WV Hog fan asked, we have players taking the leadership role to hold players accountable for their actions on and off the field? I believe we didn't have this leadership last year. Well, we talked about that multiple times on the show. Yes, there was leadership issues last year.
Yes, but I'm not sure it was a problem that was a result of poor leadership. Here's what I think happened last year. You had division splits the team fractured. If you've ever been in high school and you know how anybody that's ever gone to high school knows that there are little divisions there. I don't like these guys over there.
You mean like the cliques?
The cliques.
Like cliques, yeah.
I don't like these guys over here. We like these guys over here. I remember our high school coaches telling us, you leave all that stuff over at the high school. When you get into this field house, I don't care whether you like this guy or not. I don't care if he's one of your friends. I don't care if he's in this circle with these other people. Over here, we're all together. Didn't always work. I'm going to tell you, it didn't always work. It's very hard to prevent these fractures. So what happened last year? Okay, you had defensive line mad at the offensive line. Why? Because the offensive line would go 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, and the defense would spend all the time on the field, and then in the fourth quarter they'd run out of gas. Well, they're blaming them. They're mad at them. Okay, KJ Jefferson's mad at the O-line. They're not blocking. He's mad at them. He doesn't talk to them. They don't like him either. You get fractures inside the team. You get the one linebacker. Poop Paul supposedly got so frustrated with what was going on over on the offensive side of the ball and watching all this division and fractures that he left the team because of it. He said, if you can't heal this, but everybody blamed Pittman for that. Let me tell you something. Once that starts to split apart, it's almost impossible to reconstruct. The only thing you can do, honestly, is reset. And that's what Sam Pittman has done, and everything I've seen since then suggests that they did a reset in January. They told all of these players from the beginning, we're a band of brothers, to use the term. We don't have these divisions. Everybody's got to have everybody's back. You may not like this guy personally, but you have to like him. So how does that manifest itself? In a lot of different ways, but I'll use one thing that Eric Mateo said again. He was talking about, and what's the term for, there's a term for bumping, fist bumping. He gave the term now.
Yeah, fist bumping, yeah.
No.
Okay.
There's a term for it anyway. I knew what it was and I forgot it.
Okay.
But he talked about they are doing this, and he said he wants 100 of these a day during practice. So apparently when the practice is over, they go back and look at the video. Now, so what it is fist bumping, high-fiving, all during practice.
I'm wondering what the word you're talking about is. Jacob, do you know what word he's talking about? Fist bumping?
That's in this.
Dapping. Oh, it's
Yeah.
dap.
Can they touch each other?
Dapping. Okay, yeah. That's,
And so
thank you.
you ask yourself, well, what is the deal with that? How does that create what we're talking about here? And immediately when I heard him say that, I thought back to when I was in the Army during the Vietnam era. I was at Fort Benning, Georgia. I was at the Post radio station, which was right across the hall in the basement of Martin Army Hospital, this huge 7-story hospital with thousands of people in there, all wounded coming back from Vietnam. And they had all of these people, these soldiers that were back from Vietnam that would eat in this cafeteria. There must have been 1,500, 2,000 soldiers in there that would eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner in there. Well, we just walked across the hall and we were in there. But none of us had been to Vietnam. We weren't real soldiers, we were just guys walking around doing a radio show. So I'm watching these guys, and I would watch 40 guys sit down at a table, and they're all from a unit. They've all been together. They're back from Vietnam. They're stationed somewhere at Fort Benning, but they're in a unit. And they're sitting there and they're getting ready to eat. They're just starting to eat, and one of them one guy comes in from the unit that's late. He doesn't walk in there and immediately go get his food. He walks in and he goes around and does the elaborate handshake thing that they all do to every single one of them. And I would watch that and I would go, there's 40 guys there. This took him 5 minutes to do that before he got to go get his food. That's crazy. And I was asking a guy about that later on that had been to Vietnam. I said, what is the purpose of that? Yeah. And he said, it keeps them together. They did that when they were in Vietnam. They have to constantly reinforce we're brothers. We don't separate. I may get mad at you, you may get mad at me, but let's do this fist bump thing.
The dapping.
Okay,
dapping it up.
Okay, you made me mad, but we're okay.
I love that you knew. I'm out of that whole story. That's a great story, Mike, but I'm surprised you knew what dapping was.
Well, I didn't. He said it.
No, Jacob is our resident young person on the staff. I guess I'm not young
Mateos
anymore.
called it. He said that.
Yeah,
That's how I knew. I didn't
yeah.
know what dapping was. I just heard him say it, and I went, whoa, what's that? And then when he explained it, and it reminded me of when I was in the military. So it sounds kind of weird, guys doing that during practice. But he said, if we get under 100, I get on them. Because And what this says is they're doing everything they can to have not just leadership. Oh, we're going to have these guys over here be leaders. They're upperclassmen. Not that. You still have that. But how much better is it when you don't have to have that because everybody is doing that with each other. Everybody is holding everybody else accountable, but everybody else is being non-judgmental. If somebody makes a mistake, you just lift them up. Let's go.
It's camaraderie. It's a sense of like we're together. Like you said, that band of brothers mentality. And that truly, I believe, was missing last year. I didn't see that camaraderie in practice. I didn't see that, oh yeah, we're brothers. We got you. I got you. I'm going to hold you accountable. It just was mad.
Landon Jackson talked about how Taylon Green reached out to the guys on the defensive side. Let's go to the movies tonight. Let's go bowling. Let's go out and eat.
Not just the offense. He wants to connect with the defense. And Landon said, that's what I want to do for the offense. He goes, I want to be that leader on defense that connects with the offense.
So all of this stuff has a purpose. And these are, when we go back to that question I had earlier about that feeling you have.
Yeah, I know.
You're seeing these things, and they are not things I've seen before.
We're going to move on to the next question. Axel wants to know, where are we on the naming rights for Razorback Stadium? Any thoughts on possible replacements? That's a good question.
Yeah, I've been trying to find out. I don't think anything's about to happen on that. If it is, nobody's said anything to me about it. People I talk
Nothing to me, yeah.
Here's what I think. I don't think they're going to do that till they get ready to use the money for something at the stadium, and I don't think that's their priority right now. I think their priority is still Bud Walton, and especially now that you've got Calipari in here. Here's what's going to be interesting. Once we get into the season, and maybe even when this basketball season is over, what's Calipari's attitude going to be about Bud Walton? Is he going to make me mad by saying, oh, yeah, we need to take seats out and we need to do this fancy stuff for all these boosters? If Calipari says, I don't care about that, I want a lot of people in here. Whatever we do to this basketball arena, let's don't make it smaller.
You'll lose Mike Irwin if you say that.
So I don't know how that's going to work, but that's their priority. Whatever changes they have to make to Bud Walton, I think they'll do that before they do the football
Well, you know, they did that whole fan survey. We talked about it on the show. They did that whole, I took the whole thing because I wanted to see what the questions were in it, and they were just, you know, like basically asking what you would like to see. Do you like this? Do you like that? Do you like this? Do you like that? So I think there are changes that are going to happen to Bud Walton, but like you said, I think that's a priority over.
And there's the stuff that needs to be done at Razorback Stadium is pretty much cosmetic, honestly. The west side is just horrible looking, and they need to fix it, you know.
It's terrible.
And there's a lot of things I could suggest that would cost billions of dollars, and if they want to hire me again, I'll give them a plan for future improvement.
I know you have had. If you want to see what Mike's plan is, we talked about it in depth in another Ask Mike. Yeah. Do you remember that? We talked about it all in depth, and there was good. You had some good ideas. It would cost
about $1 billion.
Yeah, you know, the money thing was the issue, but that's okay. I liked your ideas there, Mike. The name change, my guess would be saying Tyson. I mean,
it could be,
maybe.
But see, you can't know. That could come from anywhere.
True.
Anywhere.
True.
I mean, who thought? Nobody. The original thought was when Frank started the whole process of expanding Razorback Stadium to what it sort of is now. They didn't have the north end zone that way, but everything else, the double decking of the other side, the whole south end zone part, when he did all of that and he was trying to raise money for that, they were kind of sending out feelers, and the SID at the time just did a concept, which he was mailing out to people. And they showed the stadium, and they had some signage that said Walmart Razorback Stadium. They didn't say it was.
Yes, that's
right.
They
didn't say it was going to do that. They were just using that as an example. And a bunch of people got bent out of shape because they said, "Oh, they're trying to make Walmart do this," and not even giving him a choice. And I knew the guy. He didn't do it for that reason.
It was just a conceptualization.
He was just saying, "Hey, this is an example of what we might do." Yeah. So. Could be any, and then they ended up with Don W. Reynolds. Nobody would have convinced me that's a media company that then had moved out of Arkansas and was out in Nevada or somewhere. Yeah. And how they got them to come back and do this, I still don't understand that. But
I mean, Tyson wouldn't be bad because of the Razorback Nuggets now. I mean, all the money that they're giving, you know, with basketball.
He's willing to spend. Cool. He's willing to spend money on some things, but I don't think he throws money at at certain issues. I don't know. I don't know how I don't know how he feels about Pittman. If he liked Pittman now, he'd give a lot of money to Calipari.
Hey, that's true. That's true. He likes Cal, but we don't. I mean, I would
just
say,
don't see it being an in-state company. I don't.
Okay.
If anything, how about Stevens Incorporated? Jack Stevens and Frank Broyles and Jack Stevens founded Stevens Incorporated. Jack Stevens, who's Warren Stevens' dad, he and Frank were buddies. In fact, Jack Stevens, the one that got Frank in Augusta National as a member, I think.
Oh, wow.
And so they were good buddies. And I could see, I'm not saying it'll happen, but I could see Warren wanting the stadium named after his dad, Jack Stevens Razorback Stadium.
That'd be kind of cool.
And I liked the guy. I still remember when I first got here, he was big, and Frank liked him.
It kind of has a ring to it as well. I kind of like that name.
But I don't want to suggest that's what it is.
No,
but it could be that. It could be anything.
Look, this is purely just speculation. We have no idea what it will be named, but it was in the question. Do you have any ideas on possible name replacements? So I just wanted to bring that up. Okay, Hot Dogger asks, so what is wrong with throwing the horns down sign? I couldn't believe this was an issue. Are the fans being insensitive? Texans need to toughen up if that is even possible.
It's a whole different thing in the SEC than it was in the Big 12. Yeah. When all of this came up and we knew that Texas was coming to the league, the SEC did a good job of getting on top of this right off the bat, and they issued pretty much statement on this. And here's what it said: no team will get penalized for what their fans do. If you want to throw that gesture and you're, upside or the
horns down,
horns down. I call it reverse hook 'em, but whatever.
Reverse hook 'em.
But whatever. If you want to do the horns down gesture as a fan, they're not going to punish the school or the team for what fans are doing in the stands.
No.
What they said was, if it was used in I always hate this when you enter a judgment situation and put the referees in a position where they're making a judgment, but sometimes you don't have a choice.
Mike, I'm just going to say this right here, right now. We've had this for years in the SEC. It's called the Gator Chomp. And I'm telling you, the amount of times I have seen opposing players do the Gator Chomp is a lot.
Yeah.
They do it to mock. They do it to, not to mock or to taunt, but they do it to, drum up the fans, right?
Okay, but see, here's what they said when the SEC addressed that. And let's use the Gator Chomp.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm an Arkansas defensive end. I sack Florida's quarterback.
Right, correct.
If I turn around and face Arkansas side of the field and I do the Gator, that's not a penalty. If that quarterback got up and you were doing it in their face,
correct. It's a case by case basis.
It's not any different than when you do something in basketball and stand over a guy.
Correct.
That's when it becomes a taunting penalty.
Correct.
So it's not going to be a penalty unless you're dumb.
The head of the SEC officials talked to all of us at SEC Media Days, and he gave examples like you did. If a player does it in another player's face, standing over him, gator chomping, or doing the hook 'em, the reverse hook 'em, however you say it, horns down, that the refs will have to decide whether that's a taunting penalty. In my mind, that's a taunting penalty. Now, he said they could do it to their fans. They can do gator chomp or horns down to their fans. Like if, I don't know, Isaiah Satania, catches a ball 65 yards for a touchdown, and he turns to the fans and does horns down, and they're playing Texas.
At Texas, you can get away with it.
You can. So, to me, this is much more lax than the Big 12 was.
Yes.
The Big 12 was pretty stingent about it.
Well, it's because Texas runs the Big 12.
Exactly.
And I think this is a good example of how you're Texas, you think you're going to bring your little rules interpretation into this league, this is how we're going to handle this. And if you don't like it, you shouldn't have come in this conference in the first place, because we're not going to wipe your nose for you. We're not going to clean everything up for you. You're going to have to. Florida's had to put up with this.
They have, and I'm telling you guys, everyone who's asked me, they're like, oh man, they're soft. I'm like, they are soft. Do you know why they're soft? Because no one in Florida has ever complained. I have seen so many players do it, so many opposing teams do it, and nobody goes. The Razorbacks did it they did it to my camera while they were at the Swamp and beat them this
Yeah.
past season.
Yeah.
They did it to my camera. I can show you clips right now.
And if
of them
they
doing
had
it.
been able to prove that you were a Florida graduate, maybe it would have been taunting.
Maybe it would have been. I had no problem with that. I actually thought it was pretty funny. They were having a good time with it. But I do believe Texas is a little bit soft for the fact that Florida's been dealing with this, for years and years and years, and just they haven't complained. They haven't sat there and goes, "Oh, we're sad that you're using the Gator chomp." No, it's competition. Get over it. Sorry, I'm done with it. Done with that conversation. Austin Hog fan wants to know: has someone collected all the Olympic 2024 medals won by those related to Arkansas, whether from the university, born here, etc.? I know some go back to their home country to represent, but still like to include those as well.
See, I'm not
I'm
sure.
confused of the question.
Yeah, the question, and he can write in again next week and maybe clarify this. But I'm assuming he's asking, will these medals all be collected and put into a trophy case somewhere?
No.
You don't think that's what he's asking?
But I don't know what he's asking, but I don't think that'll be done. No, they get to keep their medals.
Well, they do, but I mean, maybe voluntarily for a while you go and put it in a display case. I don't know. So I'm not sure exactly. I know what I would do if I won a gold medal and you wouldn't get your stinking hands on it. It would be in my house, and I would have it in my possession, and I would keep it until I croaked, and then it would go on to my kids, you know. And I would tell them, if you give this to somebody else or sell it, I'll come back as a ghost and haunt you.
Jordan Weber, who is the Arkansas gymnastics head coach, when Alyssa and I believe Jacob or Evan went to go interview her before the Olympics, she actually let them touch her medals. Like, she brought them out and she let them hold them. Yeah, Jacob's nodding at me, yes, but she has them, and I can't even believe she let them. I said this to Jacob after he got back. I said, I can't believe she let you touch them. That's amazing.
Yeah. So we're not sure what you mean by that. I will say that I used to get these questions all the time about the Razorbacks in the Olympics, and people are like, why don't they win more Olympic medals?
Yeah.
Because at one time, Clyde Scott was the only Razorback to ever win a medal that I know of. He won, in the year I was born, 48, he won a silver medal at the London Olympics in the 110 high hurdles. And he was a Razorback football player. Clyde Smackover Scott. Okay, then Mike Connolly won a gold medal, and I think it was the triple jump. Don't think it was the long jump, but he won in 84 or 86.
Yeah, one of those, yeah.
In LA, the LA games.
Yes.
And I think that was the only gold medal a Razorback had ever won.
Okay.
And so people would go, what's up with that? I asked John McDonnell about this one time, and he said, look, the Olympics are okay, but I don't coach an Olympic team, and I don't want to coach the Olympic team. I'm coaching the Razorbacks, and I'm coaching them to win national championships. And the way you win national championships isn't to go out and spend all your money and get one guy that can win one event. He said, I can go out and get a guy that can finish second, third, fifth, and sixth in an event like the 1,500 meters or whatever, and I will get more points than Florida if they go out and spend all their money on getting a guy. And I say money, I'm talking about in those days, it was how many scholarships you were allowed to have.
Yeah.
But if you put it all in one guy that can win the 1,500 meters, you still, and he said, so I don't have a lot of Olympic guys. I'm trying to win national championships, and I'm doing it with the formula that you use in NCAA track and field. So for a long time, while they had this tremendous success in the NCAAs, you didn't see a lot of success in the Olympics. That's changed. Now, they still don't have the success that John McDonnell had.
Right.
But you've got more success in the Olympics now.
But he's the one to thank for laying that foundation of making Arkansas what it is today.
Well,
and putting it on a platform to say, come here if you're a track and field athlete.
And even more than that, pro athletes are coming in here to train.
That's what I'm saying, right? That they know now, even if I don't go to university there, I want to train here because this is the best facilities, the best place to be.
Best coaches.
And this is why it's called the track capital of the world.
Even though Oregon claims it. It's not true.
That's not true. It's here. And so I do want to point out, because we have the breakdown of how many medals are won. And this is really impressive, guys. And I said we were going to give some love to track and field today. And I just want to point out there was 14 total medals won by current Razorbacks alums or the pro team that trains in Fayetteville. So any of the guys that train, like Tara Davis Woodhall and people like that. So Razorback alums and current Razorbacks, they won 3 gold, 2 silver, 2 bronze. And now not all of those were with Team USA. They were with different countries as well, like Jamaica and things like that.
But that's 3 gold medals in 1 Olympics.
Yes.
And not too long ago, you only had 1 ever.
Right, exactly. 3 in 1 Olympics. I mean, that's insane. And then the Fayetteville pros, that's even people who train in Fayetteville, people who call this place home, 4 gold, 2 silver, and 1 bronze.
So it was really a good Olympics for the Razorbacks.
Absolutely.
But I don't think they're going to take all those medals and put them in a display case. We'll see.
No. If I'm those athletes, I keep those right by me. I say,
you can't have
mine.
it.
I wouldn't
if you want to make a replica of it and do that, that's your business.
I wouldn't let anybody else touch them. I'd be like, no. You can look at it. You can't touch it. You know.
I'd keep it in a safety deposit box or something. You know.
Yeah. That's what I would do too. Okay, a couple more questions before we're done, and this one is one that everyone wanted to know about this week, Mike. So
very confusing.
It is very confusing, and we're going to try and do our best to explain it to you guys, but we do want to say that, look, we are not the experts on this, but we kind of have pieced together the story. So KY Hog says, this developing story about an online raffle to generate NIL money for the Razorbacks is confusing. We get you there, Eddie Lynn. We're good. Supposedly, it's a great idea, but some mysterious person at the university is blocking it, but no one seems to know who it is or why. What is up with this?
Okay, I'm not the best person to explain this because I don't gamble. And this is a form of gambling. It involves raffling. It involves a casino. I could explain it, but here's what would happen, because I've worked with you for a long enough time that I would get in the middle of explaining this and you go, no, that's not right.
No, you explained it to me earlier. We talked about it, and you got it pretty much right.
I'm going to let you explain it, and then I'll butt in if you say something that I don't agree with.
Okay, so basically, and I don't know if his official title, but he works with.
He's a marketing director.
A marketing director at Saracen Casino.
Right. And
basically,
he's a U of A graduate.
He is a U of A graduate.
His wife is a U of A graduate.
Yep.
And he's openly admitted
that his kids are going to University of Arkansas.
And he's doing this thing to help with NIL.
Correct.
He's offering to do it.
He's offering to do it with Saracen Casino. And so what they are offering is basically to do a 50-50 raffle. And this is done all over the country, by the way. This is done by a lot of different pro teams. The Kansas City Chiefs do it at every one of their home games, I believe, and they do it for the area. So this is not a new thing, right? That a 50-50
But he's
raffle.
offering to do it through their company, and they will not take any of the money.
That's correct.
They'll just do it for publicity.
So what it would be is the 50-50 raffle. What is a 50-50 raffle, right? Usually you put money in, and if you win, if your number gets pulled or you get chosen, you will win 50% of what they raise to the raffle. Where does the other 50% go? Well, sometimes if you're doing it for you can do it for a nonprofit. You can do it for a lot of different things, right? The Kansas City Chiefs pick a nonprofit to go to. But for Saracen Casino, for Bet Saracen, they want to do it to NIL, to partner with Arkansas Edge. And so Carlton, the marketing director there, fielded a call from Arkansas Edge. Arkansas, Edge, obviously we've talked about it on the show a lot of times, Arkansas's NIL program. They said, hey, you have the technology to run this raffle. We would like to do a 50-50 raffle, but we don't have the technology to do it. You, on the app, have this technology that nobody else has. And if Arkansas Edge were to do it on their app, their stuff, it would cost them millions and millions of dollars. But hey, you guys have this technology. Any chance you can partner with us and we could do this? And he was like, absolutely, that's a great idea. I love that. I want to help the university. I'm a University of Arkansas alum. We've talked about that. He wanted to do it. Now, the hurdles that they have to go through to get this to happen. Right now, state legislature doesn't allow a 50-50 raffle like that to happen. They would have to.
I think you can't do it online.
You can't do it online. There you go. You can't do it online. And so what they would do is they would be operating it on the app. And so Carlton, again, has proposed all of these different proposals for legislator to basically say if this goes through, then we're going to be allowed to do it.
Yeah, you modify the regulations a little bit to allow it.
Exactly. And he would allow, what he was saying was, he would allow it wouldn't just be Saracen Casino, it would be every casino in Arkansas. So everybody would be able to operate a 50-50 raffle like this and do it for whatever they wanted to do. And so that is where he was at with the process. But he alleged on social media that somebody
and has done interviews in which he said this too.
Correct. So he has alleged on social media and done interviews about this where somebody is blocking this. Somebody is saying.
And nobody wants to, I think we sort of know who it is, but nobody wants to say it because you just accuse somebody of something.
We're not going to say it on the show because legally we are not going to accuse
you might end up being wrong, and then all of a sudden you're in trouble by accusing somebody of something they didn't do.
Exactly. So we're not going to get in trouble on this show legally. I think our lawyers are, breathing a sigh of relief that we're not going to mention any of who we think it is on the show. But there's a lot of people on social media who have mentioned who it could be that is blocking this and saying that, hey, Arkansas doesn't need NIL money. And now for everybody asking, well, could it be someone at the university? Well, he came out and said, it's not Sam Pittman, it's not Hunter Yurchek. These people want
not
this.
The chancellor.
Not the chancellor. These people know that we need NIL money. And I'm trying to help with that. So it's somebody else. We don't know who it is. I'm just going to say that right now. I'm not going to make any guesses. You and I have talked about who we think it is off air.
And I think the bottom line on this is it sounds like he's fairly optimistic this can happen. And if it's true, then it will really help Arkansas with NIL money.
Mike, we're going to end the show on a fun note because I've been asked to address this on Ask Mike this week. And everybody knows about this, but I'm in this Tusk Talk Discord. Shout out those guys there. They're awesome. If you want to join. It's so much fun. Get to talk with a lot of cool Razorback fans. We play EA College Football 25 together. It's awesome. Anyways, John wanted to know, Courtney, are you going to address the Colorado tweet on this week's Ask Mike? And I said, you know what, John? Yes, I am going to address the tweet on this week's Ask Mike because I put myself in the line of fire last week, Mike, and I explained this to you off of air, what happened. But basically, for those of you who don't know, Colorado posted a tweet last week that they said darts only, right? And I'm going to show the video over this so people know what I'm talking about because I'm going to show the video. But they posted this tweet, darts only, and it was Shadur making a pass, a touchdown pass. And the way it was edited looks not like it was the same pass at all. It looked like they had edited it horribly to make it look like a touchdown pass.
Right.
So everyone on the internet decided to make fun of Colorado and say, oh my gosh, you guys edited this to make it look like a touchdown pass? That's ridiculous. We're in fall camp, guys. What's happening? And so all this craziness came out. And basically Arkansas decided to have a little fun with it. They decided to, poke a little fun at Colorado. They posted a tweet that said darts only, and it was Taylon Green throwing a pass. And it was definitely not the same pass, but they edited it to make it look like a touchdown pass, and it was hilarious, right? Everyone, the internet loved it. There were Florida fans commenting on it, saying, this is an Arkansas win. Oh my gosh, this is so funny. Everyone, Barstool Sports picked it up. Well, Colorado, they got mad. They got a little mad. They did come out and show the video, show the entire video unedited.
Without an edit.
Without an edit. It was a touchdown pass. Okay, guys, it was a touchdown pass.
So they weren't trying to pull a fast one.
They weren't trying to pull a fast one, just somebody edited it terribly. And so Colorado fans launched into me because they launched into me because I said, wait a minute, is Arkansas making fun of Colorado right now? This is hilarious. And they launched into me. They were like, it's not oh my gosh, do you even know that it was a touchdown pass? They came out and said it was a touchdown pass. How dumb do you look, Razorback fans? And I said, oh no, I know it's a touchdown pass. I just think it's hilarious that they're trolling the editing of how that was edited, guys. Yeah. And so then they didn't like that even more. I got called ugly, dumb, and inbred. Mike, they were worse than Kentucky fans.
Here's the bottom line on all this. Remember 2 years ago when everybody was just Prime was going to win a national championship there?
Yeah.
He was getting all the players. He had all the NIL money. Yeah. Everybody wanted to play for him. They'd show these things that he said in the team meetings, and it was like, oh, yeah, I got to play for that guy. That's just totally turned around. They're not winning. Every time you turn around, there's some embarrassing thing that happens out there. And I think I'd hate to be a Colorado fan because they went from, oh, wow, this is going to get big to, boo.
I mean, I think things there are not as happy-go-lucky as their fans want it to
Oh,
believe.
no, it's just totally turned on them.
That's just what I want to say. And also now, Colorado fans.
They don't like you.
They don't like me anymore.
So you can't go to Colorado.
No, I can't. I'm public enemy number one there. I thought I was public enemy number one in Kentucky.
Now it's Colorado.
Now it's Colorado. They're even meaner, too. I didn't know that was a thing. Mean people over there, man.
I haven't been to Colorado in years, so I'm safe.
All right, you're fine. Okay, well, Mike, you're safe.
I never go anywhere west except to Lubbock and back.
You do.
That's
you're
as
right.
far as I go.
That is as far
My
west
sister
you go.
used to live in New Mexico. I don't go over there either. They're way weird over there. So I don't go anywhere out west. I used to think the West was great and cowboys and all that stuff, but it's kind of turned into a strange place.
Well, I'll have to find out if anybody's a Colorado fan out there, and if they see my face printed up, wanted, in their practice facility, let me know. I'm public enemy number one over there. There's a bunch of them following me now. But that's going to do it for this week's Ask Mike. Hopefully we have some fun stories to tell you next week, but we're going to see you next Monday to answer more of your questions.